the first thing you want to do is stop beating up on yourself. But you are giving us the perfect example to explain something that we really want to explain about this vibrational range. And we really want you to hear us when we say that you can't get from depression all the way over to feeling wonderful all at once. It's a step-by-step process. And what we've noticed is so often when somebody knows they're depressed, and of course they don't want to be, and the more depressed you are, the more you want to be joyful, especially when you are like you and you've tasted that joy. You know the difference and you desperately want to feel better. What happens so often is as you go for treatment and you are feeling very depressed, almost everyone who is wanting to help you to get over into this better feeling place just sort of amplifies and helps you beat the drum of where you are, which just exacerbates the problem. And so what you begin to notice is that sometimes being very depressed, which is a sort of suffocating, I can't get enough air feeling, sometimes it's better to just get mad about something than it is to be depressed, because feeling anger about it does feel better than being depressed. Now, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel better to just be mad? If you turn your attention towards something that makes you angry, isn't it a relief from the depression? Now, there are many who would say, but anger's not good. Now, you shouldn't be angry. Let me treat you for your anger, and now you're just depressed. Because what we're wanting you to hear is that range or that trip from depression to anger was following the path of least resistance. It was steps in the right direction. And if you don't stop in your anger and beat up on yourself for not having gotten all the way to ecstasy, and instead you say, I do feel better, and I'm grateful for this creep that I'm mad at because it has distracted me from the depression that was so suffocating, and I'll take anger. Who else can I be mad at? Let me get out my address book. This is actually life-giving. Yep, I don't like him either, and I don't like him either, and I don't like him either. In other words, you can tell that you are on the path to feeling better. And nobody else gets to tell you how well you're doing, because nobody else knew how it felt for you to be depressed to begin with. Nobody else knew. Nobody else can know what words or thoughts are going to make you feel better. Now, you could have somebody in your life, like parents often are with children, where you are distracted from whatever it is and a little breath of fresh air seeps in. But there's something so powerful about you deliberately making the decision that today I'm going to be mad all day instead of depressed. Because mad is an improvement over depression. And so you just go and you just make as much trouble for as many people as you can. Is actually kind of satisfying and humorous. You're starting to get a feeling of your own power back. It felt a lot better. Now, some Abraham smart aleck is going to see you somewhere in the grocery store angry like that and is going to want to coach you into being all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and just punch their lights out. Because they don't know. They don't know what your path of least resistance is. Only you know what it is, and only you know that you feel so much better than you feel yesterday, that you're on the road to progress. And it doesn't matter, because you're not trying to compare yourself with anybody else. Your path of least resistance does not have anything to do with anybody but you and your feelings. So, now you're mad, and you've got pretty good at being mad. In fact, you've practiced it for a while because it was such a reprieve from the depression that you felt. But now you're starting to feel a little tired of being mad all the time. And now you're reaching for something that's softer than being angry. Well, you're not going to go for forgiveness. You can't get to forgiveness from being mad at them all. That's just asking for trouble for yourself. In other words, what you're reaching for is just a thought that feels better than this anger. And what we've noticed as we've watched so many of you is that you can go from anger to finding humor in something where you can't go from depression to finding humor in something. So now you're in a much better place to use some of your other tools. In other words, you might find a walk give you some relief. You could get from anger into joy in an hour walk. You could get from depression into joy in an hour walk, but almost no one does, because when you're depressed, you're sort of regurgitating all of that more. So then from your place of feeling angry, which you have much more of a vibrational range from that than you did in depression. Now you start reaching for thoughts of aggravation and irritation, in other words, and you find people that you're less angry at to focus on. And you don't start with yourself, because you're usually really mad at yourself. In other words, in this anger phase, this is not a time to deal with any issues. You're just trying to shake the anger a little bit, and usually some distraction. That's a good time to go to a movie. It's a good time to read a book, or to take a walk, or to meditate, or to go swimming, or to do something that sort of distracts you, because now you've been consciously aware of the difference that you deliberately induced between depression and anger. Now the next step between anger and lightheartedness will be a much easier step, because you are in more conscious creative control, and so you'll get a whiff of fresh air, something that will happen that will just make you laugh. And as you laugh hard at something, often that's enough to make the transition completely for you. You seem to feel, and many people do, that when someone asks you a question, that you have to sum up everything and give the most correct answer for everything that you've ever lived. So when we say, do you feel that you are a deserving being? You performed an extraordinary mathematical calculation in your mind as you thought about all of the things that have been going wrong and all of the things that have been going right and all the things you've ever felt and all the things that you are now feeling. And the conclusion was, more wrong than right, I'm not very blessed. Where what we want you to begin doing when you are pondering a question, or when someone asks you a question, we want you to consider it from your now vantage point. Never mind anything else that has happened, because the universe is not responding to where you have been or where you have thought or where you have vibrated. The universe is responding to your powerful now. When we asked that question, we were really not wanting the correct calculated answer. We were wanting to activate within you, in your now, a vibration that would serve you. And we really thought that, in light of everything that we've talked about, that as you are sitting here now, that you would offer a vibration that could serve you. Did you get that? In other words, it's sort of like someone saying, well, how's your life? And even though right now it is the most beautiful day in the most beautiful place on the planet. In other words, there is no place on this planet that would be more pleasant to be than here today, ever. And so if someone were to say to you, how's your life going? We'd factor that in. In fact, it'd be a really, really big factor to us. We wouldn't think about the flat tire we had last week or the bills that we could not pay. As people are perceiving you in your now, you have this feeling that here you sit as the sum total of everything that you've been, and we want you to just be the vibrator here in this moment that is doing your best to create a point of vibrational attraction here and now.